quite a notorious relationship with Craig on Strictly. How's that changed you?
Well, what Craig does on Strictly is an act, because he is not actually like that at all. He's actually quite soft. And I always say he's a tiger on stage and a pussycat off stage. And he was very amused by the whole business on Strictly. I mean, behind the scenes, he was actually encouraging Anton and me. Of course, on stage, he'd give us one, say we were dreadful.
Panto's got some really good reviews. How has the experience of Panto been for you?
It's been fascinating. I didn't know what it would be like because, let's face it, I cannot sing, I cannot dance, and I cannot act, and I'm in pantomime. But it's worked extremely well. I think if I'm to do it again, and it looks as if I might be, then I would probably take a few acting lessons between now and then, because stage acting is very different from, say, television acting.
What did you enjoy more, learning to ballroom dance with Anton or being on stage every night?
Oh, they're two completely different experiences. I mean, you might as well say to me, did I enjoy the House of Commons more than Strictly? Well, the answer is I got a huge amount more satisfaction from the House of Commons, but a vastly greater amount of enjoyment from Strictly. And if you compare Strictly to pantomime, they're two completely different experiences. Strictly was, don't forget, a competition. So every single week there was the question, well, was that going to be it? You know, I didn't know when I started I was still going to be there in week 10. Indeed, I would have taken a bet against it. With pantomime, you know you're going to be there on show 49, which is the last show. So it's completely different.
Fill in the blank. The best thing about Panto is?
Kids' laughter.
Kids' laughter.
There were two major motivations for going in. Now, one won't mean a thing to your generation, which is that I went in to fight socialism.
Okay.
And if you say that to an 18-year-old today, they look at you as if you're speaking Greek or Chinese or something. But when I had my first time vote, and 20 years later when I first got into Parliament, the world was still very strictly divided between two great conflicting political ideologies, capitalism and communism, and the physical representation of that was, of course, the Berlin Wall. You know, I mean, there was a serious battle for the future of the globe, and it was based on political ideas. And in the West, that battle was going on, but obviously it wasn't between capitalism and communism, it was between capitalism and socialism. But it was socialism. You guys have never seen socialism. You've seen Tony Blair, who was not a socialist, believe me. You know, socialism and New Labour are two completely different things. And so I went in to fight socialism. And at that time, people were very politically engaged. They were on one side or the other. But very few people just said, well, in fact nobody said, it doesn't make any difference, because it patently obviously did make a huge difference. So that was the first motivation. The second one was simply to try and solve problems which look as if they're insoluble. And if I say that, you'll immediately think, well, I'm talking about the Middle East or the pensions crisis or something. But I also mean problems at a very individual level. You know, the ordinary constituent who comes with something that you think can't possibly be sorted out, you do sort it out. It's a wonderful feeling.
So what was it that made you choose the Conservatives?
Belief in, well, I've almost touched on it before, but belief in the individual over the state. One of my big motivations for fighting socialism as hard as I fought it was because its centrepiece is the state and the control that is exercised by the state. It was the age of huge state monopolies. The state owned everything. It owned electricity, it owned water, it owned gas, it owned telephones, it owned the post, it owned everything. And you had no choice at all. You could go nowhere if you were dissatisfied.
Did you enjoy your life as an MP, and would you have done anything differently?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have spent my life any other way. I'm very glad I was a Member of Parliament. I'm very glad I did some of the things I did. But I'm also glad I've now retired. It came to a natural end.
What do you consider to be your proudest moment as an MP?
Actually, it didn't come in any front bench capacity, although I was a minister at the time. But I was acting solely as a constituency MP when I got one of my constituents out of jail in Morocco. By which I mean I got him released. I didn't go and spring him in Morocco. But by the time his wife came to see me, he'd been convicted, he'd been sentenced, he'd lost his appeal, and he was facing 9 years in a Moroccan jail for a crime that not even the Moroccans really believed he'd committed. And I began that case thinking, there's nothing I can do. This is, I mean, we can't interfere in the system of justice in this country, let alone in somebody else's.
Yeah.
But I did get him out. And he did come home after 18 months, not 9 years.
Yeah. At the height of your career as a politician, did you think that you would be performing in pantomimes and dancing on street?
No, I did not. If you'd said to me, even last year, and amazingly enough, it is only, last year's 2011. If you'd said to me 18 months ago, just after the general election in 2010, this is how it's going to go. You're going to be dancing on primetime television. You're then going to be going around the country dancing in places like Wembley. I can truthfully say I played Wembley now. Wembley and the O2 and places like that with Craig Revel Horwood. And then you'll be going into pantomime. I just said, have an aspirin, lie down. But it's happened, and the great adventure of retirement is that you can be open to things. And that you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. I mean, if I hated pantomime, I could say, right, that's it, never do it again. As it happens, I like it, so I'd be very happy to do it again. But you do have the choice when you retire. You don't have to do something for career reasons.
If you could choose any past leader or Prime Minister from any age, who would you most like to work with?
Toss up between... most like to work with. Now, that's a very interesting way of phrasing it, because for most impressive, I would say you can toss up between Churchill and Thatcher. Would I have liked to work with Churchill? No. Absolutely not. I think he would have been one of the most difficult men on earth to have worked with. That's why he was so good, of course.
But you'd like to be a member of his cabinet?
Oh, I would love to be a member of Churchill's cabinet. Of course I would, yeah.
Do you think that there should be a stronger emphasis on grammar school education?
Yes, I do. For this reason, that a good education is the only way out for children who are able and who come from deprived backgrounds where there's no interest in education, sometimes where it's quite chaotic. Whatever it might be, the only way out for them is through education. And I've always been a huge advocate of the grammar schools. And I think it is crucial that they're retained, and I would actually like to see more. And I think we might in time to come, because in the days when the 11 plus was universal in this country and we had grammar schools everywhere, there was no argument at all about the percentage of public school and state school kids going to Oxford, because the grammars sent people to Oxbridge automatically, and nobody thought it was odd. That argument has only grown up since grammars have died in favour of comprehensives, and I think that's quite indicative.
Do you think that grammar schools should be easily able to expand?
Yes, I do. And I think we should build more grammars. Now, I don't think we should do something silly like saying we need a grammar school everywhere immediately. I don't think you should do that, because reorganising the education system always takes years to settle down. But I think that where there is a demand for it and local authorities are willing, it should be permitted.
Okay. Do you think that schools should compete against international standards?
I think we should set a world standard, never mind anybody else. And indeed the A-levels used to be like that. I was out in Singapore in the mid-80s when the A-level results came out. It was all anybody talked about. It was major news, and that was Singapore. Because the A-level was regarded as the gold standard of education. And if you got good A-levels, that was a terrific achievement. Nowadays, everybody's getting 4 A's at A-level. Didn't happen in my day.